Hello everyone and welcome to the second instalment of the World Cup Waffle. If you can't all tell in this video, we're very, very sick. Probably contracted the flu that's going around, so that was one problem. And then the second problem was the fact that we had technical difficulties in the first videoing, which means that we had to delay the podcast, so apologies for that. However, so much has happened since the last time we filmed, and I'm here with Jay and Jacob. Jay, you've got the scores, haven't you?
I have, yes, and we'll come to those in a second. Just to build on what you said there, I think we've all caught something. I don't know if it's the flu. None of us are dying yet.
Not yet.
But we've probably all caught something from just going out and celebrating how well England have done, and that's obviously something we'll come to in this episode of the podcast. And to build on the technical difficulties that you mentioned, our trusty recorder right here was not so trusty in our first attempt to record this podcast, but since then, most of the group stage games have been played, and that allows us to talk about everything that we need to in detail. Jacob, do you want to say something before I rattle off the scores?
No, I was just going to say there's been a fair few shocks, hasn't there? So I'm quite surprised to see some of the names into the into the next round, but I'm sure you'll come to that anyway. But there's been some dark horses, hasn't there, as well, which we can't overlook.
Quite a few surprises, and we'll come to those shortly. So to kick off, we'll talk about Group A, the first group to get under the way in this World Cup. The first game on its standalone day on the 20th of September was Qatar 0, Ecuador 2. I think it was a game everybody expected Qatar to win.
What, 1-0 by any chance?
Through some chicanery, but it didn't happen, thankfully. Ecuador put them to the sword. That was followed up with Senegal 0, Netherlands 2. Holland doing the business as we might have expected them to do. The second round of results from Group A came as Qatar 1, Senegal 3, and Netherlands 1, Ecuador 1. Ecuador surprising quite a few people with that one. 4 points, and Enner Valencia, I think at this point, was the out-and-out top scorer at the World Cup at the time of that game. Since then, we've had results since Qatar 0, Netherlands 2, and Senegal 2, Ecuador 0.
Yeah.
Yep.
From our trusty source to my right. So before we move on to the other results, we're going to quickly go into discussion about Group A. And as you mentioned, something about a 1-0 win for Qatar that you expected on the opening day, Jacob?
No, sorry, it was
Oh,
free.
it was
3-1. I searched up Ecuador. So that's.
Oh yeah, that's an easy mistake.
I had Ecuador in my head because of Enner Valencia.
Well, it is Senegal versus Ecuador. It finished 3-1 to Senegal, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We got there in the end.
Swiftly moving on.
So, Jacob, what was that about a 1-0 win for Qatar?
I mean, I was pretty tempted to almost lump a little bit of money on it, and I do not gamble in the slightest.
Never.
But when there's a good betting tip and from a trusty source on Twitter, a verified Twitter account, you do get tempted.
Well, the problem is, a verified Twitter account only costs you £8 a month now. As long as you line Elon Musk's pocket, because he really needs money, you guys.
He does need money.
He really needs that money.
Please.
So, donate. But yeah, that was something that was going around, something that I saw trending as well. The idea that it was going to finish 1-0 to Qatar with a goal in the second half. And then within about 3 minutes, Ecuador took the lead. And then that was shut off by VAR, and I think everybody's heart sank quite a little bit.
I think at that moment, everyone sort of thought to themselves, yeah, this is probably going to be a reality, really. But, well, I mean, there's a lot of controversy around the first VAR decision, but I mean...
World Cup getting off to a flyer.
Well, on the whole, I think VAR's been okay. There's been a couple of decisions, which I'm sure we'll come to in a little bit, where it's been like a bit puzzling, but there's certainly been examples of where it's been used well this year.
Yeah. Well, it's a semi-automated VAR, isn't it, this time?
That's the thing, isn't it? So it's less prone to mistake. Obviously, there's still going to be some mistakes, which there might have been a big one last night, but we'll come to that one in a second.
Last night at the time of recording, by the way, everybody, is the 1st of December. We've just seen the conclusions of Group E and F. So we will come to those shortly. As for the teams that went through from Group A, the Netherlands, as we all expected, I think, topped the group. Looking at 7 points for a possible 9. I think 9 points out of 9 wasn't too far out of the realms of reality for them, but they just slipped up against Ecuador in a 1-1 draw. And joining them was Senegal in the end. That result that we eventually figured out was 3-1 to Senegal, and that means they will be playing England in the round of 16.
Big game.
Well,
Although
it could
they
have
don't have
been. It
Sadio
could have been
Mane.
bigger.
Yeah.
But we'll come to the reason why that isn't. Because England, of course, finished top of their group.
I think in certain ways, like when Ecuador first beat Qatar, I kind of felt for Ecuador because I thought they did play quite well in the tournament, and they did just come up short, really, especially against Senegal. But I mean, I kind of thought they possibly get through, really.
They did. They gave themselves quite a good chance, and I don't think Enner Valencia is a veteran of the game by this point at the top level. He's played in the Premier League with 2 different clubs. He's a name that people know in that Ecuador side. He's a name that mainstream fans might know in that Ecuador team. But 33 years old and carrying a knock from game 1, he still managed to get himself 3 goals, and Ecuador put in a good showing.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
he's joint top goal scorer at the minute. I'm sure that'll be taken off him shortly, but it's still quite impressive. Like you say, 2 goals in his opening game, and you thought, is this a stroke of luck? But then he backed it up with another one. So, people started to look at Ecuador as serious contenders in the group. I wouldn't say serious contenders in the World Cup as a whole.
Contenders to go through, though,
Yeah.
at the very least, yeah.
But then I think it's only right if we're touching on goal scoring, then we touch on Cody Gakpo. I believe he scored in every single one of the group stage games. So, what a talent he is.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of liked him, and he's a young player, and I think after seeing his performance in the group stage, a lot of big clubs are going to be after him. He's going to be a big name on everyone's transfer notes that come in January.
Well, a lot of what I've heard from the grapevine is that Manchester United are the biggest shark in the water,
Of course
circling
they are.
Cody Gakpo, obviously. We know what Man United are like, throwing money at Dutch talent. We'll have to see where this one goes if it does come to fruition. I believe is it a player that you encountered on FIFA before the World Cup actually came about, Jacob?
Only because of his not team of the season, but only because of his player of the month.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good on FIFA, so that old
So
saying
it
that
must be true.
He must be good. He must be good in real life. Yeah,
So it must be true, yeah.
that's the old.
Victor Ibarbo would like a word. But yeah, exactly. But somebody who's come on the world stage, shown himself to be a very impressive talent, put away some excellent goals. He's also one of the joint top scorers at the tournament as it stands with 3. He's alongside Valencia, Rashford and Mbappe. I believe that's all. Maybe a name I'm missing in there. But yeah, I think if not January, then the summer, certainly. There's going to be... I think what I was told is that his release clause is in the 40 to 50 million range, which
What a bargain.
for a player who is... Well, he's actually older than you might think. I think he's 22 or 23.
Yeah, he is.
Still
But
young, though.
for a player who still has that much of his career ahead of him and has proven himself on the world stage, why not? Why not take that punt?
I think
Especially
he's-
if you're a team lacking in that department.
And I think he's definitely going to be a player who's going to really, really be exciting to see during the rest of the World Cup. If Netherlands beat the USA and if they go through, I think he'll be one of the players to definitely look at.
Do you know who he reminds me of? Luis Diaz. He came on.
The Liverpool
Why have
player.
you
What
had
a
to-
No,
surprise.
but
He reminds you of a Liverpool player.
No,
Go
but-
figure.
But the reason he reminds me of Luis Diaz is he's got that flair, he's got that bit of tricky footwork, and that's ultimately what worked really, really well. What's worked so well for him so far, and Luis Diaz, Liverpool legend already.
Legend.
Nah, not yet.
Been there for about 18 months, if that.
All right.
Is it that long? Can't be that
Might
long,
not even
can
be
it?
that. Was it
I
just
don't even
January?
know.
he
I
turned
think
up?
it was
It was only
January.
January, wasn't
Yeah,
it? He's only
'cause
been there
he-
for a year.
Yeah, because he was going to go to Matt's beloved Spurs, and then they didn't.
Yeah,
pull the
we
finger out.
didn't want him in the end. We ended up getting Kulusevski, who's like 10 times better. So
No, because Kulusevski was already there, wasn't he?
no, Kulusevski wasn't already.
No, he
there.
also joined in the January.
Did he?
An 18-month loan, yeah.
Would you rather then, Jay? Because you'll be able to.
I'm the
decide this
neutral,
on-
am I?
Yeah. Would you rather have Luis Diaz, who can be a game changer for potentially the Premier League winners next year?
Oh,
or,
right, okay.
Or would you rather have Kulusevski, who has a good game and once every month?
You are very, very harsh on Kulusevski right there.
You're a funny guy.
And I think that's a question I'm going to leave up to interpretation for now, because both of you are
Yeah.
in range to hit me.
I think we need to move on from this conversation. And go to the
Well,
next
as
bit.
we're mentioning some Premier League football, I'd just like to draw attention to the shirt you're wearing, Matt.
this shirt. Oh, this is one of the best shirts in Premier League football. This is the Tottenham Hotspur shirt, which is my beloved supported club.
So anybody watching the podcast last week will remember that Matt is a Tottenham fan. We had a few shirts on display on the front of the table last time. What have we got on the front of the table instead today, Jacob?
We've got a lovely Radcliffe bobble hat, especially with winter coming. I thought I'd add to the scenery and just bring it up to present.
Looks like
day.
hashtag United.
No, better than hashtag United, but in a higher league than them. Do you like the sign as well?
I think that's very apt.
It's a nice touch.
Do you want to just give a quick mention to what it is you do at Radcliffe again, just in case the viewers have forgotten?
Well, as far as I'm
It's easy
aware,
to
if I've
forget.
still got the job, I run the old commentary and run a chat show every week.
There you go, Radcliffe Radio. Give it a listen. And just before we move on to the group stage games, there are some shirts behind us, as you may have noticed. A couple of those I will bring personal attention to. That middle one, which is the best, and slightly unconventional yellow. Well, I say unconventional. It's not the home colour for the mighty Preston North End. It is the away colour that we still use to this day. It is quite an old shirt, though, with the Baxi sponsor, which is not something we've had for many years. But again, my beloved Preston North End, who unfortunately weren't afforded much of a mention on the last episode of the podcast, so they're front and centre this time around.
Oh, rightly so.
Absolutely rightly so. I didn't even need to say that.
That we forgot about them.
Yeah, all right then. Just to the right of that as well, in shot, you'll see the red jacket on the wall. That's Prestwich Hayes, another team that I mentioned last weekend, and a team that I hold quite close to my heart. They essentially gave me a break in football media.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, you're tearing up. It's very beautiful, isn't it? Essentially gave me my break in football media. I did the match day, Twitter and Instagram feeds, and interviews with the manager, etc., for 2 years prior to this one. So credit where credit's due. They deserve to be up on the wall. Alongside Matt.
This is my beloved hometown, Stoke. If you haven't been to Stoke, then you should definitely go to Stoke. It is a lovely, lovely scenic place. We've got the good old Britannia sponsor on there, which is the original Bet365. We don't
Rubbish.
associate with
Rubbish.
them. They're
None of
rubbish.
that.
They're the main guys, so make sure to follow Stoke.
And one more, just the shirt that I'm wearing. In case you're unaware, this is the England shirt with the 3 lions on it. Ooh. And that's very appropriate.
Never heard of them.
No,
blokes
who are
before.
they exactly? Well, we'll tell you who they are because we're moving on to Group B, the group that England featured in and won. Insert applause here. Kicking... Oh, there we go. I didn't actually expect that. Kicking off the group with a 6-2 win over Iran that we were all present in this room for, watching as it happened, and we were all very happy to see all those goals go in. That was followed up by America drawing 1-1 with Wales in that group. Then came a very entertaining game, England 0, America 0. I think we all really enjoyed that, didn't we, guys?
Yeah.
Try not to fall asleep while I remind you. Wales 0, Iran 2, which I think we enjoyed slightly more. And then the final round of group games, USA versus Iran finished 1-0 to the USA, confirming their progress into the last 16. And, yes, drum roll please, Wales 0, England 3. Now that was a treat.
Yep, 100%. A very, 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 very enjoyable game.
A more professional performance. It was just a lot more methodical. We weren't as rash with our decision making. I think that was the main difference. And
Between which games?
Well, I think
Wales and Iran. Wales and America.
Yeah, I think in the America game, we were just so rash. We looked lost when we had the ball at our feet. But in the Wales game, we were just, it was almost like 2-touch football, and it was just like silky, and just that's how we brought players into play quite effectively. So I think if we start to see that sort of method, that style of football from Gareth Southgate in the next round, I think that will certainly serve us well against Senegal, because we can say that we got a pretty good draw, but they're there for a reason. A much better performance from the performance that we saw against the USA. I think we can't deny the fact that it was just so slow and it was just so sluggish from England, from an England point of view. And to be honest, I actually think the USA actually probably edged that game.
I think they performed better, definitely.
But then we did see a massive improvement in the Wales game. Yes, we had to be patient for the goals, but the football was a lot more attractive. It was more silky. We were playing 2-touch, bringing everybody into play, and it just causing them all sorts of problems. I think we scored 2 goals in 2 minutes, so I'm surprised the lads had recovered in time from the last celebrations.
It was 50 and 51 minutes. We got the Rashford free kick goal and then Foden's tap-in. Speaking of which, both Rashford and Foden hadn't started against Iran in the 6-2 thrashing or America in the 0-0 ball draw. What do we think is going to happen now going into the round of 16 when it comes to Gareth Southgate's team selection? Do we think he's going to back the original choices he made in those opening games, the ones that could be seen to have mattered more? Like, ultimately, the game against Wales, as long as we didn't lose 4-0, we were through, pretty much.
Yeah.
But, those games against Iran and America were technically the ones that mattered more. They were more important. They were more they carried more weight in the group. When it comes to the games that carry so much more weight, these knockout games, does Southgate revert back to the team that he chose in those original games? Or does he give the likes of Rashford and Foden and who else started that game? Henderson, I guess, but he wasn't really too vital. And Walker coming back from a knock. Does he give those players that chance, do you think?
Well, let's have a look at the team from position and let's say our pick, and then we'll try and reach a general consensus.
So we're going for another starting 11?
Another starting 11.
Well, a joint starting 11 this time.
Okay.
So we'll do it like position by position, I think.
I think from the three performances, I think we've really got to consider Pickford still in goal.
Pickford still in goal.
He's not really made any mistakes, has he?
No, not
hasn't
particularly.
at all.
No,
I think
the two goals that we conceded in the Iran game, weren't really his fault.
It wasn't a lot to do with him, really. The first shot came at him very quickly, and the penalty was just it's 50-50, isn't it?
Well, talking about the penalty, you can't give that as a penalty and then turn away Harry Maguire's in the 3rd minute.
That's a very good point. I forgot about that in the Iran game.
Absolutely ludicrous. I don't like to slate officials, but you look at how VAR is being used, and I'm all for VAR. I think it does help the game eliminate sort of those like crucial match decisions, like errors. But if you're going to use it consistently. That's all I'd argue. I understand you're going to make mistakes, but you've got to keep it consistent, and you've got to use it for on the biggest stage correctly.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, exactly. As you are going to be ridiculed. I don't think we need to go through a whole starting 11, but I do have one question for you guys. Rashford, currently one of the top scorers at the World Cup, one of the joint top scorers. 3 goals so far, 2 in the Wales game, man of the match performance, arguably.
Candidate for the Golden Boot.
Does he start going forward?
I kind of, you know what? I think, I would give him the start because, I think Foden was good in the game, but I think out of him and out of, say, Sterling as well, who I think was very sort of vacant in the USA game, I kind of think the impact he made, the way he came on, he made a couple of mistakes in the game, but the impact he made was absolutely phenomenal. And I think the way he played, even, when he came onto the pitch, I just think he was such a vital part to that team, and he really looked special.
This is Rashford, yeah?
Yeah,
it's Rashford. It's Rashford.
So it's a big tournament for him, isn't it, in general?
It's a massive tournament.
Because you think about the slander that he was having 12 months before. I think there was actually talk about him going on loan. But then he sort of had a little bit of a resurgence in recent weeks before the World Cup and during the World Cup. So
I think this season he's been much more part of Ten Hag's plans than maybe a lot of people expected. And it's paid off because he's scoring goals again. He's putting the idea that he can't finish to bed.
Pardon?
Disgraceful, both of you. Mine's out of the gutters, please. This is a PG podcast. He's putting the idea that he can't put the ball in the back of the net out of people's minds.
You're just setting me up here, aren't you?
Yeah.
No, I'm not at all. You're just disgraceful. Anyway, moving swiftly on, he's proving himself to be an invaluable member of Man United's squad, and I think he has to start, to be honest, going forward, because otherwise, how is he personally going to keep up this momentum? And if he does, well, that's only beneficial for England.
What about right side then? Because I think we can all agree that we play Rashford on the left.
Yeah.
I think it is difficult. It's a difficult decision. I think, like I say, Foden for me, yes, he was good, but I did think he was maybe a little bit vacant in that game.
He is also a left-sided player, Foden.
And he is a left-sided player, but I think he'd be great off the bench. So I think we'd go with what he started with and have Saka on the right.
I'd back that. Saka, Kane, Rashford.
But he has his favourites in Sterling, who can play right side.
I understand that chances are he will want to play Sterling, because Sterling Sterling has like something like 81 caps at the moment, and he's a very, very experienced player. He's a very safe option.
Hasn't he got the most appearances in the?
He's got the
current
most
England
appearances
squad?
in the current
England squad, he does,
England
yeah.
squad, which is absolutely phenomenal.
So you can't ignore the fact that he's more experienced.
Exactly.
But do you give it to the player that's more so in form? Because as you made the point in the first episode, Jay, that he's not only just coming into form in the World Cup, he's probably been, I hate to say it, but I think he's probably been one, if not the best forward this year in the league.
Who's that? Saka?
Saka.
That's a brave shout,
It is a
but
brave
he's
shout,
been
but
one of the best players in the team that are currently 5 points clear. That is inarguable. And personally, I start Saka on the right with Rashford on the left and Kane through the middle against Senegal.
Do you play
I
Mount
don't
in
know
the hole?
whether,
Or do you play Foden? Because you can play Foden in
I don't
that,
think
in
you
that
play
number
Foden
10.
in the hole. I think Foden's too accustomed to playing on the left side.
I
now.
have a feeling that Gareth will want to go safe. If he's going with that kind of attack, he's going to want to go with what he went with against Wales, where it's Bellingham, Henderson and Rice. I think when you look, and I know people might say that Henderson didn't really have much of a pick, but I actually kind of think that Henderson played all right.
I think he sped up the
Wales
play.
game.
I think he...
And I think he's such a commanding player, and he's almost like a second captain in that team.
He is a leader, but I personally would back Mount over Henderson because I think Mount is the much better player in terms of his actual technique and physical, like his actual ability on the ball.
But then you
Yeah,
can't
agreed.
ignore that Foden can play in that number 10 role as well.
Yeah, of course he can.
He can, but he hasn't done for a long time, remember?
But yeah, I get that. But then having that versatility, if we need
Excuse me.
if we do need to change formation and maybe go a free back and then two wingers each side, then you've got the license to use Foden in that regard as well. So it's good. It's a good problem to have for Gareth, but he's always going to get crucified whichever way he picks it.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, I think Gareth will go with what he thinks is best, and he'll go with what's safe because that's the kind of manager he is. He's very sort of, he likes the reassurance of knowing that the players in the squad can perhaps deal with that sort of pressure. And if he doesn't think that the players will be able to deal with it, he won't put them on.
So do you not think we won't see a surprise name like James Maddison or Conor Gallagher and rotate the
I
squad?
don't think we will.
Not in knockout football. I think it's too big of a risk.
I don't think we will.
A bench appearance if we're 2-0 up against Senegal, maybe. Before we make this into another England podcast, we're going to quickly move on to Group C. The opener to Group C, I think, took everybody by surprise, and we've got plenty to talk about there. Argentina 1, Saudi Arabia 2.
Crazy.
It's a game that's not leaving many people's minds very soon. The rest of the group was, on paper, fairly boring. Mexico 0, Poland 0, Argentina 2, Mexico 0, expected. Poland 2, Saudi Arabia 0, expected on paper. Argentina 2, Poland 0, and Mexico 2, Saudi Arabia 1. This leaves the group as follows. Argentina first with 6 points. Poland second on goal difference with the 3 points they took from the game against Saudi
Wasn't it
Arabia.
on fair play record in the end?
No, I think Saudi Arabia's late goal against Mexico meant that Poland had 1 goal.
Oh, of course it was, because it was
Mexico.
level before
It would
that
have
point.
been fair
wasn't
play, and then Saudi Arabia got a late goal against Mexico to ensure that it was goal difference instead that took Poland into the last 16, with Mexico exiting and Saudi Arabia finishing off the group. Just a quick trivia stat for you. That is the first time Mexico have been eliminated in the group stages of the last 7 World Cups.
Wow, really?
Because
I'm going to
every
scribble
single-
that question off now.
incredible. But
that was one of my questions.
That's one of the
Wasn't it?
questions for the quiz.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, so
Oh, well, what
I'll
do you
scribble
know?
that one off.
Jay, ruined the quiz.
Apologies for that, but yes, so that's 7 World Cups in a
Typical.
row that Mexico progressed to the last 16, and interestingly, they got knocked out in the last 16 of all of those 7 tournaments. But this time they've not quite made it there.
How many of them was Ochoa in the team? Because he feels
Probably
like
the last 2 or 3, I reckon.
Yeah.
Last
probably
3
more than
maybe.
that. He feels like he's been around donkey's years.
He's one of those players, isn't he, that you can never ever bet against at the World Cup. He saved a penalty from Lewandowski, and no, Messi missed against
Yeah,
Poland.
but you can't
so
ignore the
that's
fact that he's got an
it.
advantage. I swear, I'm almost certain that he's got 6 fingers on one hand, unless I've misread that somewhere.
You've definitely misread that somewhere.
One second, I'm gonna search
Google that, because I'm
You
actually
could-
not
you-
sure. That could very easily be true.
6 fingers.
I don't know. Maybe that's just like a sport Bible thing where they've just like joked about it, or like a 433 post on Instagram where it's like, we're sure he's got 6 fingers because he saves everything.
I'd,
Yeah, he
Or
does.
maybe it's
he does
He has 6 fingers on one hand.
on his right hand.
Guillermo
so that-
Ochoa from Burnley secretly.
I don't really get how that gives him an advantage.
got an extra
He's
thing
got-
to
he's got-
palm it away.
He's got bigger hands.
He's got bigger hands, yeah.
Do you
Well,
reckon
look.
he has to have two different size gloves then?
Probably, yeah, because
It's like a size 9 on one hand and
finger, hasn't he?
size 10 on the other.
He's got a specialist
Jesus
gloves
Christ,
made.
6-finger
Yeah,
gloves.
what's it?
Give the bloke oven mitts. Would be
That
fine.
must be awkward when you have to shake his hand though. Like when you put your hand down like that.
I think we're
he's got
focusing
one
too
stick-
much on the 6 fingers here.
I think we are a little
Let's
bit.
move away from that.
So the big talking point from Group C, of course, was Argentina 1, Saudi Arabia 2. Where do we start with this game?
I genuinely, when I can remember someone told me, and I was like, "You are joking."
It's not your mate that told us about the Iran.
No,
defense being
It's
brilliant.
not. No, it's not him. But I was absolutely, I was shocked, and I've got to say, credit to Saudi Arabia. Whenever you saw Messi on that pitch, he was always marked. You know, there was no way for him to actually, make any movement. There was no way for him to create anything because he was constantly being marked by the Saudi Arabian defence, and it was really, really good tactic.
The problem is, with Argentina, they have had some amazing players in their squad over the last 15 years or so. Like, at the back, the likes of Mascherano.
Otamendi.
Well,
He's still playing,
at the
mate.
back, the likes of Mascherano. In the midfield, the likes of Di Maria. Going forward, take your pick. Aguero, Tevez, Lavezzi. Cracking players, Lautaro Martinez these days.
Fazio.
It's always been Fazio. Jesus, what a throwback that is.
I remember him having like 30 pace on FIFA.
Yeah, to be fair. But with Argentina, it's always been about Messi, and that makes sense. Obviously, he is arguably the best player of all time. But the problem is, I feel like I said arguably. That wasn't a hot take. That's up for contention. Don't kill me. I think that the problem is, Plan A is give the ball to Messi. Plan B doesn't really exist
No.
for Argentina, and teams have figured that out.
That might be. Yeah, I was going to say that might be where Argentina become unstuck then as they progress in this tournament.
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Because relying on Lionel Messi in his prime when he won 4 Ballon d'Ors in a row is not necessarily the worst idea in the world. Relying on Lionel Messi when he's 35 and he doesn't have the players around him. Like, this is a discussion I was having with a few of our friends. When he plays for PSG, if you're defending against that PSG front three, you're defending against all 3 of them. You're defending against Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar, and that's terrifying. I don't care who you are. If you're defending against Argentina, you're defending against Messi et al. Messi and the rest. Like, you lock him out. He is not only the finisher of most attacks, he is the creator of a lot of them. If you lock him out, you can then focus on the players that are great still. The likes of Di Maria and Martinez are still excellent footballers, but they're not Messi. They're not quite on that level.
And I think-
And Argentina know it, and that's the problem. They know that he is their biggest strength. So if they can just get rid of that, I think they panic a little.
I think one of the issues is with the Argentina team as well is some of the top players in that team. It is quite an aging squad when you think about it. You know, Di Maria is in his 30s now. Messi's obviously in his 30s. They have Otamendi at the back, who left City, and he's been vacant for a while, so we don't know what he's playing like. It seems to me like quite, when you look at it at times, quite an underwhelming team. Like almost.
Messi elevates it. Their names elevate it, but yeah, there are a lot of their reliance is on players who well, not necessarily a lot of their reliance, but their reliance is on some aging players.
I think it's more so great individual players rather than a great team.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a
Definitely.
very good point to make.
I do try.
Yes, you do.
I think even like Mexico. I think that there's some. I think when you look at the other teams as well, like you look at some of the players in like the Mexico team, and you look at players like one of the players who stood out for me in the Mexico team was like Hervin Lozano, who constantly looked like such an energetic player. And again, it's just I feel like it's a similar thing with the team like with Poland. You know, there were just certain players who were good in the teams.
Well, Lewandowski finally got his World Cup goal, didn't he?
Finally,
It's only like the 4th attempt.
after
where
a penalty.
Robert Lewandowski's finally put the ball in the back of the net at a World Cup. Credit where it's due to that, although I don't think it quite makes up for the Ballon d'Or of Rob Nob in 2020. You can quote me on that. Just as a quick word about the Saudi Arabia team as well. This is a story that went around everywhere after they beat Argentina. In Saudi Arabia, a national holiday was declared by the King of Saudi Arabia after they beat Argentina, and all the players were awarded Rolls Royces as presents, which
It's not a bad way to live, is
Was
it?
it
not
part
at
of that
all.
team?
If all it takes is to just run after Messi for 90 minutes, I'll take a Rolls Royce. I might never walk again, but I'll still take a Rolls Royce. So we'll move on to Group D. This is a group that I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, to be fair, and that's because one of my teams from my sweepstake were in it. And they surprised me, as well as a few others, I think. Kicked off with Denmark 0, Tunisia 0, a thriller. And then France 4, Australia 1, which was not very good for me personally. The Aussies redeemed themselves with a 1-0 win over Tunisia. And France kept their winning streak up against Denmark to be the first team through to the last 16. Australia confirmed their place in the last 16 on the final day with a 1-0 win over Denmark, which I think surprised quite a few people.
Yep.
Broke my heart.
Yeah, your sweepstake got kicked in the
chin
by mine.
I was expecting them to be the dark horses again, I think.
One more result just before we carry on. Perhaps an even bigger shock. France 0, Tunisia 1. Where did that come from?
That was the frosting on the cake, wasn't it, really?
So as you mentioned, Denmark, dark horses?
I expected them to be, but who are we saying now? Because there's quite a few teams that have been quite underwhelming, yeah. I think, for me, I don't know, actually.
Coming from that group or just in general?
Just in general. It's quite a difficult one, isn't it? Because a lot of the teams we expected to progress, but maybe Japan.
Yeah, Japan.
They've got a lot of great attackers, and if they play like they did against Spain in that second half, they're going to be a real handful to contend with.
Well, we will come to that. Just a few points to make on Group D, however. France, the defending world champions, the first team through to the last 16. They've broke the curse as well of the last, I think it's 4 of the last 5 World Cup holders have been eliminated at the group stage. France have broken that curse. They were the first team through to the round of 16 chronologically, and Kylian Mbappe looks unstoppable.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He is a burst of energy, isn't he, really?
Can't wait for him to come to Liverpool in the summer.
Yeah, just like
him and Bellingham, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be an alright summer.
When you sign him and Bellingham in January, I will officially I'll just resign at live.
I'll tell you what, if Liverpool signed Bellingham, you have to get me a pint. If Bellingham goes elsewhere, I'll buy you a pint.
Shake his hand for that.
That's a deal and a half.
I'll tell you what, I'll have
a bet, is it?
I'll have a strawberry and lime Copperberg, please.
Yeah, Florentino Perez will shortly be on the phone. Yeah, so Kylian Mbappe looks unstoppable. Another one of the joint top scorers at the World Cup. I can't get over watching him play. Like, just how quick he is. Actually, like, almost rots my brain a little bit. It makes me feel very inferior because he is only 2 or 3 years older than all of us.
Yeah.
And
I used to go high school with him.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. But he does what he does. He does everything so quickly. It's ridiculous to watch.
He's one of them players that by the time you've actually worked out what he was doing from his last movement, he's already on the move again.
He's 3 steps ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly.
All times. Yeah, absolutely. And a future Ballon d'Or winner, well, yes, he is.
Well, we'll just settle this debate then while we're on the podcast. Haaland or Mbappe?
Mbappe.
I do really like Haaland, but I think as a generally more gifted footballer, it probably is Mbappe. I feel like Mbappe is more of a creator than Haaland. I think he is more of a influence on the game rather than Haaland popping up at the moments that he does. Haaland just has the one, like, Haaland gets 3 chances a game surrounded by incredible players at City, and he converts all of them, which obviously takes a lot of work. But Mbappe creates the chances he converts as well. He doesn't get on the end of a cross. He doesn't latch onto a through ball. Well, I mean, he does, but he then beats 3 players. Haaland's more likely to just break away from them because he's a Terminator.
Yeah, I also think that Haaland is built to be a striker and nothing else. Where I think Mbappe is built to be a forward player in general.
But he can play anywhere across that front line,
absolutely
can't he?
Anywhere. Where I feel Haaland is very, very restricted with the size and strength he is to just play that striker role, that number 9.
And he does like the left-hand side Mbappe, which is where he's been playing for France, alongside Olivier Giroud. Obviously, Karim Benzema went home early from this World Cup with an injury, the Ballon d'Or winner most recently, which is a big blow for France. And then you consider the fact that Giroud, is he level with Henry still?
Yeah, he's level,
Yep.
So he's a goal away from breaking the record.
One more goal, when you're surrounded by the players you are, if you're Olivier Giroud, if you only need to score one more goal when you're surrounded by this France team, you're backing yourself.
Well,
Absolutely.
Of course you are.
He's
yeah.
one goal away from being the best
Definitely.
striker in France history.
Well, best is contentious. I think
Best is contentious,
most prolific is a bit more accurate.
I don't know.
And it's probably a record
He obviously is better
It's
than.
it's
Look,
still a solid stat to put on your CV.
Look, it's an incredible stat for Olivier Giroud, and it goes alongside many, many things as well. Serie A champion, multiple-time FA Cup winner, Champions League winner, World Cup winner in 2018.
I mean, the only strike against his borders that he played for Arsenal, which, you know, it's poor for
Well,
him.
he chose the better side of London, didn't he?
League 1 winner as well. You forget that with Montpellier back in the day. To be France's all-time record goal scorer as he retires would be huge. It's a record that he probably won't hold for long. Kylian Mbappe is on about 30 goals and is only about 24. So expect that record to be broken in
The next few
5-6 years. Mbappe probably has that record on toast. But still, credit where it's due to France.
Definitely.
Group E then. This is the one where...
This is the group we love.
not quite. No, that's Group
Oh.
F. Group E is the one that
Damn
the team that were FIFA's highest ranked team for a long time absolutely fell off the wagon. Game 1, Morocco 0, Croatia 0. Right, fair enough. Belgium 1, Canada 0. Canada gave themselves a good showing in that game, but just came up short. Morocco 2, Belgium 0. That caught quite a few people off guard, I think. And then Croatia 4, Canada 1. Belgium 0, Croatia 0. Morocco 2, Canada 1 means that the group is as follows. Morocco top the group, which
Incredible.
you would get quite the return, I think, if you put a bet on there, if you put a decent chunk on it. Croatia in second, which most people expected. Belgium in third. Belgium are going home. Managerless now, Belgium are going home, and Canada round out proceedings.
Well, I think we could all kind of see that Bobby Martinez, he was definitely determined for the sack. I mean, how can that guy manage that Belgium squad after, you know, that poor performance?
Look, Roberto Martinez's career was made when Wigan won the World Cup. The what?
Wigan won the World
Oh
Cup.
my God! No, sorry, that
I
was
hope
West
not.
Ham. That was West Ham in '66.
Won the FA Cup, did they?
Wigan won the FA Cup in 2013 under Bobby Martinez. It was the same season they got relegated from the Premier League. Martinez went to Everton and did a fine job. He didn't break the world when he managed Everton. He lost that job because he was fired, not because he stepped down, and then got the Belgium job. Belgium's team at that time had young Lukaku, De Bruyne, Hazard going into his prime, other Hazard as well, who turned himself into an excellent footballer, defenders like Alderweireld and Vertonghen, Courtois in goal, a team of superstars, and it was the former Wigan manager in charge. I've never really liked that decision that Bobby Martinez got the Belgium golden generation, and they've won nothing under Bobby Martinez. What does that tell you?
So it's slightly puzzling, to be fair. Because as you said, the abundance of talent that they've had in these last 10, 15 years is, well, it's a dream, isn't it? You don't dream of working players like that. You think about De Bruyne, absolute joke of a play. And then, even consider players like Tielemans, who's upcoming. He's looking really, really sharp. Lukaku, probably part of the reason that I feel Belgium did crash out in the end. He had so many opportunities to kill the game off.
That game against Croatia, those misses.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of memes going around where it's Lukaku missing a sitter, and you've just got the impractical jokers in the studio and the headphones going, now miss another one, and killing themselves laughing. He had a really poor showing in that final game against Croatia. Belgium themselves have had a really underwhelming showing at this World Cup. And Bobby Martinez stepping down, I think, is the correct decision. I just hope they appoint someone that's worthy of those incredible players.
The issue is now, of course, with Belgium is that some of them players will be even older when the next World Cup
But
rolls
you'd
around.
think they'd be older by the time the next
Look
World
at
Cup
it.
comes along.
It's almost like
4 years.
Age 4 years. Wow.
So that
Cheers, Jeff.
How old's Kevin De Bruyne now?
32, I
32,
think.
so
So
it'll be
his next World Cup, he'll be
36.
35 or 36 years old, which is a shame because to have a player like that, a once in a generation talent, he sees passes that people don't even know exist, and to see him not be able to fully show what he's capable of on the biggest stage in world football when there's most eyes on the tournaments on football, it's a shame. He hasn't earned that, and neither of the rest of that talented Belgium team. Credit to Morocco, though. They came from nowhere to top the group.
Yeah.
They might be a dark horse shout, you know?
Potentially, yeah. Potentially. I
have,
don't think they're overly stable at the back.
But they have that striker, don't they? That En-Nesyri, is it?
Yeah.
Who plays for Sevilla?
Then you've got Hakimi, who plays
Hakimi
there.
as well.
Ziyech.
Hakim Ziyech, yeah.
So,
There is a few
they've
big
got
names.
Is that Roman Saiz as well?
Yeah.
Saiz, yeah.
Yeah, he
he's Moroccan.
scored the other day.
So they've got so they have got some good players. I mean, they could definitely be in for a shout for maybe one of the dark horses. Of the World
Depends
Cup,
who they get in the
depending
next
on who
round,
they
I
get
think.
in the next round.
Yeah, well, we don't quite know that because Groups G and H are being played today as we record this. Before we get there, though, we'll discuss. This is the one we've been waiting for. Group F.
The best group, in my opinion.
So Germany 1, Japan 2, got the World Cup, got Group F, off to a brilliant start, and then Spain 7, Costa Rica 0. That one, I think, well, we expected it to set the tone, and then it didn't really at all. Germany 1, Spain 0. They recovered a little bit of credibility in that one, did the Germans?
It was 1-1, wasn't it?
Sorry, I've misread that. It is
Yeah.
Germany 1, Spain 1. They
gonna
recovered
say.
credibility still. They got the draw. The next game was a 1-0. That's where I'm going wrong. Japan 0, Costa Rica 1, which, after Japan's win against Germany, Costa Rica was the one game they probably expected to win. But it doesn't matter because then they went on to beat Spain
Yep.
in a game that was played last night at the time of recording. Also played last night was Germany 4, Costa Rica 2. But what that means is the group is as follows. Japan top the group with 6 points. Spain creep through in second on, was it goal difference in the end?
Yeah.
Goal difference over the Germans, who make their way home at the group stages for the second tournament in a row, and Costa Rica follow up at the back. So, Japan then.
Was it over the line?
So that's the talking point, isn't it? For anybody who isn't aware, just to make sure, in that Japan versus Spain game, after the equaliser, which was a good shot and some dreadful goalkeeping.
Yeah, he should. I think he should have palmed that away. In
Absolutely
fairness,
should have palmed that. Some poor near post goalkeeping.
Well,
from
he was at fault for both goals, I feel.
Simon, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as for that second goal, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not the ball crossed the line to go out of play before it was recovered and sent back into the middle for the Japan goal that led to them taking the lead. Personally, the fact that the goal wasn't chalked off, I am okay with, and not just because I'm always rooting for the underdog.
Was that because of the revenge from Frank Lampard's strike against the Germans?
No, it's not, although that's very poetic. I think with the... This is what I've seen a lot of this morning on social media. Apparently the decision was less to do with the VAR officials being convinced the ball stayed in, and it was more to do with them not being 100% convinced that it went out. They didn't necessarily say to him, you're definitely correct or you're definitely wrong.
Well, what's it? Initially, he's decided that the ball's gone out of play.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he initially give it as a...
Yeah.
Right.
So,
that changes my entire point then, because I thought the initial decision was goal.
No, he's indicated that the ball's gone out. So my point would be, is if you can't conclusively tell if that ball's gone out or stayed in, then you just stick with your on-field decision.
That's exactly what I was going to say, but I was under the impression that the goal was initially given.
No.
Right. Well, that changes my entire point, and I totally agree with you there, because the idea behind VAR, the mantra is to overturn clear and obvious errors. If there is not enough evidence to suggest that the initial decision was a clear and obvious error, don't overturn the decision.
Well, you just throw yourself under the bus, don't you? But the thing that, watching the game live yesterday, and the great point was made, is throughout this tournament we've seen straight away, like, conclusive evidence of offsides, but we didn't see conclusive evidence of the ball staying in play. So it must have been really, really marginal. But then you think about sort of the backlash that you're going to get for that, because how can you prove? You can prove to yourself and argue to yourself that you think it stayed in, but go back to, if it's not clear and obvious, then don't change your mind.
I think one of the big issues is with that is that the fact that that there was play on. When he got the ball back in, the goal was there, and I think when you're looking at the different angles, I think I've seen a lot of things on social media this morning about the different angles. From different angles, it looks sometimes it looks out, sometimes it looks in. But if you look at the narrow down angle when you're looking above the ball, it does look in.
Are you on about the curvature of the ball?
Yeah,
Curvature
that's
of
the
ball,
point,
and
isn't
that's
it?
the
It's the
point. It's the
curvature
fact
of the
that the
ball.
curvature of the ball was actually in, which led to the decision being what it was.
Yeah, it's a puzzling one.
It's really difficult, and to be honest, I'm in a way, I was kind of glad that wasn't my job.
Exactly. We can sit here and debate about whether or not it was correct. If it was us making that decision,
But you think about what's on the line as well.
It's
Oh,
so
well,
different.
It's not a case of
It was
what win or loss, is it?
Who went through?
I was going to say, yeah, it's nation's pride you're looking at on the line here. Like, Japan, had they not scored that goal, had that game finished 1-1, would Japan have gone out on goal difference?
Japan would
think
have gone
so, yeah.
out because
Germany
scored
went
2,
on to win, didn't they?
Well, Spain would have won the group by a point at the
Germany
very least.
won 4-2.
Germany won 4-2 against Costa Rica in the end, despite going 2-1 down. But I think goal difference would have meant that Japan went home. Instead, that goal being given meant Japan won the group. And they've probably got the more generous draw in comparison to Spain, who also went through. Spain... Go ahead.
I was just going to say the one thing that's really impressed me about the Japanese fans is how tidy they are. You see the scenes where they've tidied the dressing room, literally leave it probably in better condition than it was when they actually arrived, and then how they tidy up the grounds. When would you ever see a British person get a carrier bag and say, "Oh, Beatrice, put your rubbish in here"?
I don't think that just
you
goes
finished
for,
your meal deal.
I don't think that just goes for British people either. I think most people in general. I think what Japan have really shown in this World Cup, they haven't just shown that they're a competitive team and they're here to play. They've shown that they're a courteous team. That they care and
They're authentic, aren't they?
They are authentic, and I think that's so important. And it gives them all the respect from every other fan, I think, in the world really at the moment.
Well, just as a neutral fan, it almost spurs you on and makes you want them to do that bit better.
Yeah.
Obviously not against your nation, but sort of just in like general sort of rule of thumb.
As a neutral, they're endearing.
Yeah, they are.
Definitely.
Like what they. Oh,
There's a microphone there.
I'm aware. What they've done is quite wholesome, and
Yeah,
it just makes you want to see them progress.
Good thing is that they've got the coverage for their actions,
Definitely.
and I'm sure they've not done it sort of to get the big name titles on the front of the paper, but I think it's just ingrained in their culture, isn't it, to sort of be authentic, just really resonate with people.
Yeah, definitely.
And
But I think but I think the other important thing is about that group is obviously we saw Spain play as well, and Spain 7-0 against Costa Rica. But I think one of the standout players for Spain was actually Alvaro Morata, who scored three of the three goals. Was it 3 goals?
Two or three.
Two or three against Costa Rica. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think he got one against Costa Rica, then he got one against
Germany as well, and
then he scored the goal against Japan as well.
Yeah, so I think he scored in every goal, and to be honest,
In every goal?
in every game.
Let's go say.
Wait, is that Morata on 3 goals then?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, he's one of the joint top scorers then. He wasn't in we missed earlier on.
So I think really that's put him up in contention, because I know a lot of people have different views about Morata and the teams that he's been to.
Another thing with Spain as well, it's just very poetic that they've got regens in midfield of Xavi and Iniesta, haven't they?
Yeah.
And for one of them, they've only had to change the first letter of his name. They've gone from Xavi to Gavi, and he looks amazing. He's had a great World Cup so far. And you've also got Pedri, who's played his absolute legs off for Barcelona and for Spain for the last year and a half. If those players continue to develop the way they are,
There'll be some big-time bowlers.
Both Barcelona and Spain needn't worry about midfield selection for the next 10 years plus. Moving on to Group G. Now, these are the groups that have not yet concluded at the time of recording. I'm sure by the time this gets uploaded, they will have. But the results so far, we have Switzerland 1, Cameroon 0, and Brazil 2, Serbia 0. Then we had arguably the game of the tournament with Cameroon 3, Serbia 3, and then Brazil 1, Switzerland 0. They're the 2 games for each team that have happened thus far. Brazil are through to the round of 16, and they look like one of the favourites, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think as soon as you saw them 2 beautiful goals scored
here
by scored by Richarlison, I had faith all the way in Brazil.
I'm sure you did. But yeah, Brazil looked brilliant. Cameroon have somewhat surprised me as well in that Serbia game. I think they showed a lot of mettle.
I did call it that they bring it back from 3-1.
You did, yes. So they went 3-1 down to Serbia after 3 rapid-fire goals, to be fair, from the likes of Mitrovic and
I think Milinkovic-Savic.
Another itch, basically, in that Serbia team. And Cameroon fought their way back from being on the brink of World Cup elimination to being in serious contention going into, well, not necessarily serious contention, but to still being in contention going into the final round of games.
Who have they got?
They will be playing against Brazil.
Yeah, so we'll pack the bags now.
Yeah,
I think coming from that
very
game, though, that Serbia-Cameroon game, I think the moment in that game, that last goal that was scored, the chip, that was such a cool goal.
I think he's only done that because he thinks he's offside.
You probably wouldn't have the audacity to try it, would you?
No, you wouldn't. You really wouldn't. Like, your team, you're 3-2 down. And I mean, I think he was thinking at the time, I must be offside or something must be not right, which is why I did it. But it was such a nice, cool chip. And
fantastic run, in fairness.
Brilliant run.
Because you look at the position of the right back.
It was Serbia's right back that got caught out twice.
Arguably at fault for both goals, which they conceded to see Cameroon draw level.
Mustn't have got the memo about the offside trap.
Yeah, because he's only stepped after the ball's been played, and then he's sort of looking across with his arms in the air. And when's that going to go for you? I thought, I was saying to Jay actually that in that game he looked quite sharp, and then next minute he was at fault for both goals. So
straight out of the Harry Maguire handbook. And finally, we've got Group H, whose final games also take place today. We've got Uruguay 0, South Korea 0. That was a game that happened on the opening weekend. And Portugal 3, Ghana 2. Ghana, despite being the lowest ranked team in the World Cup, giving themselves a good showing against Portugal, against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal. South Korea 2, Ghana 3. This time the Africans on the correct end of a 3-2 scoreline. And Portugal 2, Uruguay 0. Excuse me while I wipe my face. Portugal 2, Uruguay 0. Did Ronaldo score that goal?
Piers Morgan seems to think so. So he must have.
Oh well, yeah, that's it. He told Piers Morgan personally that he scored the goal, so it must be true.
I mean, of course, he's going to convince himself and try and convince others that he scored the goal because why wouldn't you?
You'd want the accolades, wouldn't you?
But I think really, when you do look at the goal, I can remember we were actually in the pub at the time.
We were in Spoons, weren't we?
We were at Wetherspoons.
I was still waiting for my food at this point.
I was watching the goal. And it was a brilliant ball from Bruno Fernandes into the space. I think it was Bruno Fernandes who put the ball in.
It was Fernandes who put the cross in, and Fernandes who eventually got credited with the goal as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Ronaldo, I know he jumped up for it and he put it, but I could not see that the ball hit him.
Ronaldo interfered, sure. He got in the goalkeeper's way. As you said, it was Bruno's cross that came in, and Bruno actually got the other goal in that game as well from the penalty spot against Uruguay. And Ronaldo does enough. He distracts the goalkeeper, he gets in his face, but he doesn't touch the ball. It's very clear to see that there is no contact, and I think Adidas got out the heat. Was it like the heat map thing? Not the heat map thing. It's like the heartbeat.
The sensor.
The sensor
on
on the ball, and they showed the sound waves created by Bruno's kick and Ronaldo's header. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. No. So I think it's safe to say that Bruno being given that goal officially was correct. And look, Ronaldo's got 119 other international goals to remember. I'm sure he'll live.
Yeah, maybe. I think Portugal. Obviously, I mean, I thought they were anyway, but they've definitely been the massive standout in the group.
They have, yeah, and they're through to the last 16.
Well, you'd expect them to be.
Another curious point, actually. At the time of recording, Uruguay still haven't scored at this World Cup. Uruguay with Suarez and Bentancur and Nunes and Cavani haven't put the ball in the back of the net yet.
They just haven't really. I just don't. Watching them play, I've seen a couple of games and they were in. I just don't really think they've turned up this World Cup.
They just look a bit lost.
They don't look ready. They don't look together. It's almost like it's a team that just haven't actually had the time and chance to play together much. And I think that's really resembled in the way that they've played.
Yeah.
Well, I think with Uruguay as well, we'll just talk about the games that are coming up on today's. As we're recording, the games are happening today. Brazil versus Cameroon, as we mentioned. Serbia versus Switzerland is the other game from Group G. Uruguay-Ghana, which is a replay of 2010's quarterfinal, the infamous Suarez handball, if you guys remember that one.
Yeah.
And South Korea versus Portugal. They are the games that will happen today. South Korea are they already out? I don't think they're already out, but they may as well be. Portugal are definitely already through. So there's still some things to be decided.
Yeah.
In that final round of group games. before we move on to the quiz, Jacob, that you have so graciously prepared, I have a couple of questions for you.
Go on.
We've watched the majority of the group stages now. Who are your winners of the World Cup?
Ooh. If you asked me at the start of the World Cup, I think I probably would have said someone like, I think Germany, weirdly. But
Well, it's definitely not going to be them.
That's not gone to script, has it? I'm still quite confident we can do quite well. I think the big ones when we get to the quarterfinals. That's going to be the big one. If we can match up with the big boys.
Odds are it's going to be France.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If we can put a really good show in and actually play the football that we know we can play, then there's no reason why we can't go on and potentially be the eventual winners.
Completely agree. I would definitely suggest the same. I think we're still in big contention. We did really well in the group stage, and I think if we can really prove to play a good game against Senegal, I think we'd definitely be suggested to be potential winners for the World Cup.
So is England both your answer?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that's quite the confidence boost. Who are your top scorers?
It's hard to say, but I think Morata for me.
Morata. That.
Well, if you think about the side of the draw that Spain are in, I think it works in its favour.
I think Mbappe.
Yeah,
I definitely think
do agree
Mbappe.
with that. Yeah,
I'd love to say Rashford. I would love to say Rashford, but we don't
think
quite
he'll get
know.
the opportunities.
We don't quite know if he'll get the opportunities yet, so we'll have to see about that. But player who starts all the time, I would definitely say Mbappe.
Okay.
He's looked amazing.
I'm agreeing with that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got shouts for Morata to be the top scorer.
Wow,
That is an interesting one.
Incredible.
Look, if you're correct about that, then I will buy you a pint.
Yeah, definitely.
Get that on camera.
That is on camera.
2 pints. Two pints right there.
That's
for
2
you.
pints if Bellingham goes to Liverpool and Morata finishes top scorer.
I'm going to be absolutely
Jacob's
levered.
Jacob's getting a free night out. Do you want to get underway with the quiz then?
Let's get this quiz on the go.
Welcome along to the quiz.
Just before we start as well, buzzer noises.
Also, we did do a quiz on Monday when we actually did record this, which unfortunately we didn't we won't get to see. But just to let you know, we won that quiz. I won that quiz.
Last goal. Right. It was last goal
by
wins.
An absolute landslide.
Yeah, all right then. Okay.
I'm joking. Jay got all the questions right, and then Jacob said the last question is to win it, and I somehow guessed the last question and got it.
So with that in mind, I'm just going to go for a nap until the final question.
Yeah, so see you later, Jay.
Yeah.
So first question. Well, we'll do the same rules and recap the rules.
Yeah, of course.
If you get the question right, then you get a point. If you buzz in and get the question wrong, then -1 point. And then
you're getting it written down this time, are we?
Yeah.
So we can actually keep track. Okay.
And then if you both get it wrong, then obviously you get -1 point each. And then you get the license to one hint. And what was the other rule?
So confusing.
I think that was it.
There was another rule.
We don't need to add that many rules.
No, just keep it to the points. I'd say.
Okay.
Play along at home as well. You can get your score sheets ready.
Come on.
Here we go then. How many times have Holland played in the World Cup final?
Christ. 3.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
That is
Correct.
correct.
74 with Cruyff.
Whenever
2010, and I don't know when the other one was, but it was worth a go.
Whenever you say that's the final answer, I know he's got that right.
That's a very good point, actually. If Jacob ever says, is that your final answer?
You didn't know he's got it right.
Now we've said it, he'll say, is that your final answer when we get one wrong now?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so in the last minute of extra time in his country's hard-fought 2010 quarter-final match against Ghana, which player was sent off as he used his hands?
That's interesting. I just happened to bring this up
Yeah.
about 5 minutes ago.
Well, I thought I'd ease you in.
Is it Luis Suarez?
It might possibly be.
Yeah.
Next question.
You didn't even say
Have
if he
I
was
got
right.
the-
You
excuse me,
didn't
have I
say
got
if
the
he was
point?
Yeah,
right.
I told you. I told you
very
it was
much.
right.
No, you didn't.
You went, it might possibly be, and then left it open to interpretation.
In 2006, 2 players that represented England were both playing their football abroad. Name both.
Wow.
2006
2006 England squad abroad.
2006.
Uh,
Might be time. You can both use one hint if you want.
I know who one of them is. I might not.
I
need to
know.
use the hint.
I know one, but I don't know the other.
David Beckham
Okay.
and Michael Owen.
Nope.
He'd already gone to Newcastle by that point, hadn't he?
Yep.
God damn it.
You got one right though.
God. I can't. Why can't I think of who it is? I don't know. I'm passing because I can't.
This could be
think.
like a really horrendous player, by the way.
Yeah,
This could be like a
it could be
Darius Vassell
absolutely
playing at
anyone.
like God knows where in India or something like that.
So that was -1 for Jay. You're not buzzing in, Matt?
No,
No, okay. So it was David Beckham, who was playing in Spain
I
at
knew,
the time,
I knew that one.
and Owen Hargreaves, who was playing for Bayern
Oh,
Munich.
is he at
Germany.
Bayern?
Yeah.
Of course.
I wouldn't have even thought Hargreaves went. I bet he saw about 2 minutes of football throughout that tournament.
See.
That's where he gets his accents from.
Yeah, all 15 of
All
them. Whenever he
15
talks on BC
accents.
Sport, yeah.
So the next question: before taking the England manager's job, which team did Sir Alfie Ramsey win the English league title with?
Sir
And
Alfie Ramsey. Is that what you call him when you meet him at the pub for
in
a
their
drink?
first season
he
in the
had
top
the
flight.
England job.
Yeah, before he had the England job.
Well, he
Right.
won the World Cup as England manager. So before he took it, who did he win the top league with? So we're looking at the early 60s here.
I'm not- Go on.
Wolves.
Nope.
Can I have a hint?
Why didn't I use it?
Ed Sheeran.
What?
Oh,
How is that
I
a
know it
hint?
actually. I think they said
Yeah.
that. I'm pretty sure.
Is that a hint?
I think it's a good hint.
It's who he supports, and I'm pretty sure. I know who it is. Can I buzz in again?
Nah.
Oh,
Ah, 'cause you got -1.
I don't know.
Do you want to tell us, Jay?
it's Ipswich, isn't it?
It is.
Is it?
They won in what year did they win it? 1960.
It's 60, yeah.
Yeah.
So, next question. Just trying to work out which one I actually
This is
want
getting
to
exactly
ask.
Which
the way
one
it
you want
was
to
last-
ask? Just
Yeah.
to get-
This
so
is getting
so
how it
is
was
that
last
so does that
week.
mean I'm back to 0 now?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right.
You're on the same score as me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next question wins, and everything.
Yeah, we'll do next question wins.
Oh, really? We're doing
get
that now, aren't we?
in.
Question
Come
5.
on.
Oh.
This is where I shine.
Oh God.
Excuse me. Just trying to. I want to do one that you'll be able to get because there's a couple where you're like.
This way you're being fair now. I like this.
Okay, here we go. An England theme one.
Go on.
England came bottom of Group D in the 2014 World Cup. Which team won their group, and which other European team was eliminated from the group?
Costa Rica won the group, and
Yep.
Italy were also eliminated.
There you go.
Yes.
God damn it.
I didn't know if you were playing, Matt.
Redemption.
I wasn't. I
Come
wasn't.
on.
So the scores
So
end.
I won the last one, so I don't care.
And for completionists, the other team that went through from the group was Uruguay.
So Matt with a grand with a grand total of
Zero.
Zero. And myself with a grand total of 1.
We'll take that.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of the World Cup Waffle. As always, pleasure to be joined by you gents. And I look forward to the next episode next week, which should be hopefully out sooner than this week's. We did have some technical issues, which Matt referred to earlier on in the podcast. But we'll hopefully be discussing England getting through to the last 16. And, well, we'll hope that they go on and do the job and win the whole thing. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
Before I say goodbye from me as well, we'll have plenty more to discuss on the next episode of the World Cup Waffle. Whether or not the round of 16 games will have all been played, we will find out. It's goodbye from me.
Ciao, ciao, real smooth.